Part 64. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 631. Sister 11, I'm going to get some more food. Is there anything you want to eat? After dancing for a while, Wei Minmin felt that she still needed to replenish her physical strength. Zhang Lingzi was not polite to her either, that little blueberry cake. Okay. 3 pieces. No problem. At worst, she brought it over on a tray. Just after Wei Minmin finished picking out what he wanted to eat and brought back the small cakes that Sister 11 asked for on a tray, he saw that his seat had been occupied. I don't know if the seat has. The words person stuck in the other person's throat when he looked back. 2. Second young master. Abscavaner smiled lightly at Wei Minmin, his voice was gentle and polite, and his Chinese was still magnetic and fluent. I want to say a few words to this girl. This beautiful lady can move to another seat first. Wei Minmin strongly suspected that this man's Chinese was learned from his girlfriends from China, but she still looked at Zhang Lingzi. It didn't matter that this man was the second son of the Albers family. She listened to Sister 11. Sister 11. Minmin, please go to the seat next to you and eat first. Don't eat my little cake. Oh. Watching Wei Minmin leave, Kevina looked at Zhang Lingzi, who was sitting opposite. Some people have outstanding temperament but can only be seen from a distance, but the person in front of him not only has outstanding temperament, but also has a more beautiful appearance than his previous girlfriends. She can be called the ultimate beauty. Ms. Zhang. Zhang Lingzi interrupted him directly. Mr. Albers, among the guests you invited to the welcome ball this time, is there anyone named Wu Hua? She had some doubts that Wu Hua didn't come in with an invitation letter at all, but through what channel did the other party come in? This is the reason why she watched the person in front of her sit down instead of driving him away like the people in front of her. Wu Hua, this question was thrown down from his pocket. Even Kevin Nadu was stunned for 2 seconds. Miss Jiang's curious question is really beyond my expectation. Is this Wu Hua a friend of Miss Jiang? Zhang Lingzi examined the reaction of the person in front of him when he heard the name Wu Hua. She had just wondered whether Wu Hua might be related to the Albers family. After all, the security at this welcome dance was still very strict, and Wu Hua still appeared in front of her generously. But now, judging from the second young master's subconscious reaction, he must have never heard of the name Wu Hua. But it is also possible that Wu Hua is not called Wu Hua here, but another pseudonym is used. Since this man came over, she took the opportunity to ask. Mr. Albers only said if there was any. Kevina. The last person to be so rude to him was her sister's college classmate and good friend. But facing this face, he felt he could bear it. There are a lot of guests invited, I have to check. Zhang Lingzi nodded, her eyes conveying urging. Kevina. Why did you become someone who just did what you were told out of nowhere? But once the matter was agreed, he was not the one to go back on his word, so he could only take out his mobile phone and call the person in charge, check to see if any of today's guests are named Wu Hua. Zhang Lingzi added, female. Well, it's a woman. The other end of the phone responded as soon as they found it, and Kevin hung up the phone. I'm already checking it, so I just call it free. Zhang Lingzi waved to Wei Minmin, who was immersed in eating. The other party understood and handed over a small cake and a dessert fork. Began to eat. There is no time to talk when you are eating. Kevina was blocked again. Although the beauty's food is also very pleasing to the eye, he is not to underestimated. You haven't sat in front of him just to eat. As the host of this dance, the second young master Albos attracted the attention of many people. Many people saw him not only abandoning his ex-girlfriend, but also his current girlfriend. He even stayed away from the center of the dance floor and went to the corner of the hall to sit in front of a beautiful girl he didn't know. Is this a new target for lust? This second young master really doesn't hide his philandering nature at all. My taste hasn't changed either. This girl looks strange, but she does have good looks and outstanding temperament. No wonder she can be spotted even if she sits in a corner. I recognize her. Her name seems to be Zhang Lingzi. Some time ago, Yoon announced that she has added a new brand ambassador. She is this girl. This time she also stayed in Chongxiao Tower. I'm just a brand ambassador of Yoon, so staying in Chongxiao Tower is nothing, but if I really become the second son's girlfriend, I can reach the sky in one step. Gu Jiantong was also at the dance. It's just that she didn't bother to target Zhang Lingzi today. First of all, Zhang Lingzi was too low-key and didn't even join in the fun when he came. Secondly, she suffered a series of setbacks from Zhang Lingzi. Even though she didn't want to admit it, she felt a little timid. She mainly came to Wei Ni today to ease the relationship. After the two separated yesterday, she didn't receive any news or phone calls from Winnie to ease their relationship until the welcome party. She was really unsettled. She can't lose this layer of connections, especially now that she's still on the other side's territory. When she saw that the Obskopna actually fell in love with Zhang Lingzi, she could not help but laugh out loud. If Winnie hadn't been right in front of her. Other women may be envious or jealous that the next person the second son of the Albers family likes is not her, but she is not envious at all, and is even happy to see it happen. She sincerely wished that Ebskavaner could catch Zhang Lingzi. I don't believe that Shen Yunqing will still be guarding Zhang Lingzi when the time comes. Kevina, that stinky boy. Gu Jiantong resisted the urge to take a photo, looked back at her frowning friend, and joked with a smile. It seems that Kevin Na has a new goal. Winnie had never cared about her brother's attitude of changing girlfriends as casually as changing clothes, but this time there was obvious disapproval on her face. He can't control that girl Zhang. Girl Zhang is different from her previous girlfriends. The smile on Gu Qintung's face froze. In the end, she resisted and did not retort directly. Instead, she said in a roundabout way, "You are too careful about the charm of Kevin and the surname of Albers. There should be no woman who combines the two. If you can resist this temptation, you will see if they are not honest." The words "very happy conversation" stuck in her throat after seeing Zhang Lingzi eating cake in front of Kevin Na. What kind of development is this? Others who saw Zhang Lingzi's move. Is it possible that the second young master wants to watch mukbang? After all, Miss Zhang seemed to be enjoying her food very well, and she didn't even bother to talk to the second young master sitting in front of her. Make them all hungry. Winnie smiled and said, "It seems that the little cake is much more important to Miss Zhang than Kavana." Gu Qintung's expression changed, "But Zhang Lingzi didn't drive your brother away either." "That is naturally because the question I asked has not yet been answered." Cough. Kavana couldn't help coughing. Hearing the sound, Zhang Lingzi swallowed the last bite of the cake, and then took a sip of the juice Wei Minmin handed her. "Any results?" Kevina subconsciously responded yes, paused, and then said, "There is no one named Wu Hua in the guest list." Zhang Lingzi looked at the face in front of her that was particularly stupid in her eyes. "Excuse me, you can go." Even if Wu Hua is related to the Albers family, the in front of him probably won't know any key information. Until he got up and left his seat and walked out several meters away, Kevina suddenly stopped in his steps and a look of confusion appeared on his face. When did he become so obedient? End of chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 632. But we have gone so far, and we can't go back. Moreover, as soon as he left, the seat just now was already occupied. Kevina returned to his friend with mixed emotions. "It's you, you're the one who managed to chat for so long. How's it going?" Kevina. "Where has it been so long?" Subtracting the fact that he just called the person in charge to find a customer named Wu Hua, and subtracting the time the other party spent eating small cakes, he and Miss Zhang only spoke 3 words in total. Can he say that he didn't even ask for the most basic contact information in front of everyone? This is not embarrassing enough to say. Go and have fun while you're at it. After sending his friends away, Kevin took a glass of wine and took a few sips when he saw his girlfriend coming over. Kevina, am I going to become a thing of the past too? Kevina was stunned for a moment when he met his girlfriend's calm and excessive eyes. Swallowing the wine in his mouth, his throat was a little hoarse from the heat. Are you ready to break up? Otherwise, with your usual style of making girlfriends, do you still want me to expect that you can be loyal to me? The moment we started dating, I was already prepared to break up, the girlfriend said and looked up. Glancing in the direction of Zhang Lingzi, I also saw that Miss Zhang is indeed beautiful. She was mysterious and calm when she faced you just now. With such traits and her unique appearance, it's not surprising that you would be attracted to her. I am willing to lose. Kevin wiped his face and was about to explain when he saw his girlfriend was about to turn around and leave, so he quickly reached out to hold her. The people around are quietly paying attention. They love to watch the plots of real-life idol dramas. Next, is the male protagonist, who has always been a playboy, ready to win back his girlfriend, or is he ready to turn around and start a new relationship? Even her elder sister, Eberswine, quietly pricked up her ears. Let you worry about it, now I'm afraid the new one won't catch you, and the old one will abandon you too. In the corner not far away, Wei Minmin's eyes had the word "eat melon" written in big letters. Sister 11, look, the second young master's girlfriend seems to be breaking up with you. Could it be because he just came over and sat across from you for a while? Others were just too far away to hear what these two people said, but she was close enough to hear something. Those people probably thought that the second young master was talking about flirting with a new love interest, but the position she was sitting at was just opposite the second young master. The second young master did say hello to the girl when he met for the first time at first, but later on his development was directly led astray by Sister 11. If she were asked to describe how Sister 11 treated this second young master, the word tool man would be quite appropriate. And it's the kind that is thrown away after use. Now I see this second young man misunderstood by his girlfriend and broke up with him. I feel a little happy and a little pitiful for some reason, ha ha ha. No, I'm not ready to break up. These words not only stunned the girlfriend who was being pulled, but also made everyone around her quietly raise their eyebrows. The second young master went over just now and was obviously very interested in the girl. He also sat down and stayed for so long before coming back. Is it possible that he didn't win this? How difficult it must be to pursue this. A flash of disappointment flashed across Gu Qintung's eyes. She thought Kevin could be so charming, that's it? Zhang Lingzi didn't even look down on the Albers family, which is more helpful to the entertainment industry, which also surprised her. Then what you just said, weren't you? It was Miss Zhang who asked me to do him a small favor, Kevin said, embarrassed to say that he didn't even know why he listened to Zhang Lingzi's instructions in a confused way, and was busy calling someone to do it. Now I'll be back after I've finished my work. It's not a loss of face. As a host, it's reasonable to do a small favor for the guests. As for Miss Zhang, he has now come to his senses. The other party didn't mean to treat him differently at all, whether it was his words or his attitude. They just treated him who came to the door automatically as a tool. Really, that's good enough? The girlfriend was finally coaxed. After all, if there is no need to break up, then she naturally doesn't want to break up. Although her boyfriend is indeed known to be a philanderer, the benefits of being the girlfriend of the second son of the Albers family are enough to make her not care about this shortcoming. The reason why she took the initiative to break up was because she knew Kevin's consistent style. This person will only be with the next girl he likes after he has completely gotten out of the previous relationship. Speaking proactively can make her more respectable. Kevin coaxed his girlfriend back. Just when he was relieved that he didn't have to go through a relationship gap, he saw his sister walking towards him with a smile. Sister, he looked behind her again, Miss Gu. Winnie clinked glasses with her brother and said, have you encountered a Waterloo in front of that girl this time? Kevina smiled bitterly and said, sister, did you come here specifically to laugh at your own brother? Okay, let's get down to business. Wei and I accepted the offer and asked curiously, what kind of help did Miss Zhang ask you to do just now? Or was it just an excuse to deal with your little girlfriend? It's really helpful. She asked me to check if there is a guest named Wu Hua at today's welcome dance. You will do it if I ask you to check it. Wei and I almost couldn't help but want to touch her brother's head. Does this guy have a fever? You can only talk so easily when you have a fever. Kevina, well, he no longer had to worry about being embarrassed when facing his sister. I don't know what happened. She asked me to do it and I did it without even thinking about it. Thinking about it now, it really feels like being poisoned. Wait a minute, the name Wu Hua. Wei and I frowned and thought about it carefully. I seem to have heard it somewhere. Where? I can't remember it for a while, but it's obviously a Chinese name. I'll think about it again when I get back. This environment also makes me unable to calm down and think about it. Gu Jiantong did not interrupt the conversation between the two siblings, but silently remembered the name Wu Hua in his heart. Why is Zhang Lingzi asking about this name? Looking up, he saw Wei and I raising her glass and about to leave. Winnie, what are you going to do? Let's say hello to Miss Zhang. After all, we've met her once before, so we know each other. Do you want to go with me? I don't need it. Gu Jiantong forced a smile and waved her hand. I just stay here. She didn't want to go and say hello to Zhang Lingzi in person. As the eldest lady of the Albers family, Winnie has a higher status than Kevina. Many people at the scene were also silently paying attention to her movements. At this moment, everyone saw that after the second young master of the Albers family, the eldest lady of the Albers family also took the initiative to walk towards the same person. Then the question becomes, what is the attraction of this person? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 633. Unexpectedly, Zhang Lingzi herself was a little surprised that Obersweeney took the initiative to say hello. After all, yesterday's first meeting was not a good situation. Miss Zhang, just call me Wei Ni. Miss Winnie. My younger brother has been spoiled by his family. If he made Miss Zhang unhappy just now, I would like to apologize to Miss Zhang on his behalf. Ms. Winnie said something harsh. Although this person suddenly came over to strike up a conversation and attracted many people to look over, it did make her a little unhappy. But later on, she also asked the other party to do a favor, and the two were evenly matched, so no one owed the other. Why didn't Miss Zhang go dancing to relax? To be honest, I can't. Winnie was stunned for a moment. Is there anyone who can dance 2 waltzes these days? Not to mention that the person in front of her was in the entertainment industry. But when Zhang Lingzi looked at her, she felt that this was not an excuse. It's just that if they really don't know how to do it, most people will choose to hide the fact that they don't know how to do it. Miss Zhang is really straightforward. Zhou Lingyu looked at the scene not far away where Zhang Lingzi and the eldest lady of the Albers family were chatting happily, feeling panic in her heart. What was shocking was that she never expected Zhang Lingzi to just sit there without moving much, and let the two hosts at the welcome dance take the initiative to say hello one after another. How could Zhang Lingzi be related to the Albers family? Her head hurt thinking about it, but she still couldn't think of it. What worries me is the dress on my body. After the dance started, she followed the flow of people in. When she received the call from her agent, piano music was already playing in the hall. Everyone around her was listening quietly, and she could only hang up the call from her agent. After that, they toasted and socialized around, were invited to dance, and didn't bother to check the authenticity of the dress they were wearing. If Zhang Lingzi really has connections with the Albers family, it shouldn't be difficult to borrow the MR family's dress. Are the hardships you experience true or false? How dare Suman lie to her? Even though most of the people's eyes were focused on Zhang Lingzi at this moment, and she had retreated to a dark place where no one could easily detect her, Zhou Lingyu still felt that there were people around her pointing at her. Look, I attended the welcome ball hosted by the Albers family and actually wore a fake dress. How can you have the nerve to go out to a banquet if you can't even borrow MR's dress? Don't you feel embarrassed to be standing in the same space as someone wearing a genuine dress? Zhou Lingyu resisted the urge to pull down the hanging curtains and wrap them around her body to cover her dress. She covered her mouth and stumbled towards the entrance of the hall, not daring to make too much noise to attract attention. She can't stay in this place for a second. Asterisk. The dance didn't end until nearly midnight. In the farewell piano music, everyone said goodbye to each other and left. Zhang Lingzi and Wei Minmin also followed the flow of people and walked out. What are you looking around for? Wei Minmin straightened her head and said, Sister 11, I just looked everywhere and didn't see Zhou Lingyu. What are you looking for her for? Who asked her to wear a dress exactly like yours and show off in front of you before the ball started? I guess she finally realized that her dress was a fake, and she had no shame to stay any longer, so she ran away early. It's also possible that I was timid when I saw that the eldest lady of the Albers family knew you. In fact, I was a little surprised when the eldest lady came over to say hello. I felt that this eldest lady had a pretty good temper, and was better than that Gu Jiantong. Too much. Zhang Lingzi was walking while listening to Wei Minmin's chattering in her ears. Just as she took one foot out of the banquet hall door, she paused suddenly, and then looked back as if she was feeling something. In the empty corridor on the second floor of the hall, under the huge crystal chandelier, Wu Hua was still wearing the thick black gauze skirt, smiling at her and waving her hand. After Wei Minmin took 2 steps out, she noticed that the person next to her had stopped. She turned around and asked, Sister 11, what are you looking at? She also looked over. There's nothing. Zhang Lingzi looked away. Let's go. Ah, oh. The dance ended, and the assistants waiting in the annex building next door came to greet them. Tong Yu watched Zhang Lingzi and Wei Minmin come out together and quickly walked up to them. How is it? Is everything going well? As he spoke, he winked at Zhang Lingzi and asked with his eyes, have you met that second son? Zhang Lingzi replied smoothly, paused and shook her head, and Tong Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Wei Minmin also saw the assistant who came to pick her up. Sister 11, my assistant is here, I'll leave first. Be careful on the road. You too. Go back to the car that has been waiting on the roadside for a long time. When the car in front drives away, their car will also start. Tong Yu glanced at the still brightly lit banquet hall outside the car window, covered her mouth and yawned, I can finally go back to sleep. What she didn't know yet was that many of the invited guests in the car driving in the front and behind were giving similar instructions to the assistants around them. Check Zhang Lingzi. Zhang Lingzi. She's from China. The eldest lady of the Albers family seems to like her very much. I want to know more about her. For a time, the popularity of international searches for the word Zhang Lingzi increased rapidly. Domestic netizens who follow this area. What's going on? Shen Yunqing sat on the seat next to Zhang Lingzi and was the first to notice something was wrong with her right hand. Why is it so cold? Zhang Lingzi let him grab her right hand. She felt it was warmer than her own, and she even took the initiative to rub it. We'll talk about it when we get back. When the car drove back to Chongxiao Tower, Tong Yu opened the door and got out of the car. When she turned around, she saw that Zhang Lingzi and Mr. Shen were holding hands, and they did not let go even when they got out of the car. She couldn't help but take another look, and then glanced aside. Getting on the elevator, walking through the corridor and returning to the room, everyone said good night to each other, yawned and rushed back to the room to sleep. The door is locked. Shen Yunqing turned on the main switch in the room and the room was suddenly as bright as day. Zhang Lingzi was so stabbed that she couldn't help but squint her eyes. As soon as she opened them, she was faced with an extremely serious face. "What's wrong with the hand? Even your Majesty didn't shout?" Zhang Lingzi rarely felt a little out of breath. "I admit that I was a little impulsive at the time." "Well, what then?" "I met Wu Hua at the dance. She was a little close at the time. I always felt that her body was a little weird, so I touched her, and then my hand changed like this. But don't worry, I think this will be much better than when we first met. It should be fine by the time we get there tonight." And after touching this, I just confirmed that Wu Hua's body is indeed weird. She is ice cold. She doesn't look like a normal person at all. I guess she still hasn't recovered from the injuries she sustained in the underground tomb. Also, she has officially declared war on me. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 634. It's just that the stiffness and coldness of my right hand will make me lose strength for a while, which is indeed a bit troublesome. Zhang Lingzi estimated that Lu Zhengzheng and the others had already fallen asleep, and it would be hard to wake them up again. "Help." Shen Yunqing looked at the delicate face in front of her that deliberately showed a little bit of anger. She couldn't maintain the last bit of seriousness she tried to maintain, and she completely lost her temper. With an extra pair of hands to help, the complicated heavy-duty dress was finally taken off and hung aside. Shen Yunqing went to get the cosmetic bag again. After opening it, he looked at the bottles and jars and some strange gadgets inside. How to use it? Zhang Lingzi was sitting on a stool wrapped in her nightgown, and pointed her finger. "Open that small white jar, and dig it into a peanut. Spread it in your palm, rub it on your face and the makeup will fall off. Give me another face towel." Shen Yunqing pursed her lips and began to follow the instructions. After finally removing the makeup from my face, it was time to brush my teeth, wash my face, take a shower and wash my hair. These things are not impossible to do with one hand, but they are still a bit troublesome. Zhang Lingzi opened the bathroom door and looked back at Shen Yunqing, who was not ready to follow. "Follow me, I'm not done yet." Shen Yunqing. They arrived home at almost midnight. When they finally packed up and climbed into bed, Zhang Lingzi looked at the time and said, "It's already 1 o'clock, so fast." Turning around, he saw Shen Yunqing still standing by the bed with his cell phone in hand. It seemed that he had no intention of going to bed right away. He immediately frowned and said, "Don't tell me that you still have unfinished work. I'll send a message to Wuju and ask him to come and see your hand, just in case Wu Hua also appears on the territory of the Albers family, so I need to tell him. He should have rested by now. It doesn't matter, he will get up and read my news." After sending the message and waiting for a reply with the word "received," Shen Yunqing settled his worries, put down his phone, turned off the lights and went to bed. Zhang Lingzi was closing her eyes to prepare for sleep, when she suddenly felt her right hand being clasped, and a steady stream of heat rushed into her palm. Her thoughts were interrupted, and she subconsciously looked at the pillow next to her. The room was dark, and only a smooth outline could be vaguely seen. A voice fell to my ear, "Is it any warmer?" Go to sleep. A dreamless night. Asterisk. But there are many people who can't sleep this night. As soon as Zhou Lingyu returned to her residence, she called Su Men to her room, locked the door and looked at him coldly. If she hadn't been worried that she was abroad and couldn't hire a makeup artist who could satisfy her, she would have had to point to Su Men to do her makeup for a while. On the way back, she had done it in front of other people. The Su family is so shameless, why wait until now and have to carry other people on their backs? but after holding it in for so long, she had reached the edge of explosion. "You don't have anything to say to me?" Su-men was so stared at by Zhou Lingyu that he was sweating on his forehead. He felt guilty and did not dare to raise his hands to wipe it. He laughed dryly and said, "Sister Lingyu, what do you mean by this? What can I say? Why didn't I notice you were so arrogant before?" Zhou Lingyu grinned at her molar teeth and stretched out her hand to pull the dress still on her body, Amar's dress. "Are you just taking advantage of the fact that there are no media filming at today's dance? How dare you use a fake dress to deal with me?" Su-men's eyes suddenly widened. "It's fake, how could it be fake?" Zhou Lingyu looked at his exaggerated expression, picked up the phone on the side and pulled out a photo of Zhang Lingzi she had secretly taken, and took a photo of Zhang Lingzi in Su-men's direction. "I think you won't cry until you see the coffin." Su-men didn't dare to take the phone. He only glanced at it and his eyes went dark. Someone actually wore it to the welcome dance. "Think again, what else do you want to say to me?" "I'm sorry Sister Lingyu," Su-men kneeled down decisively as the evidence was placed in front of him. "I never dared to tell you that I had some unpleasantness with Mr. some time ago, and you just happened to have taken a fancy to their family again this time. This dress, you have been in a bad temper these days and I don't dare to advise you to change it to something else, so I couldn't help but take a chance." "I have a bad temper, a fluke." Su-men lowered his head. "Isn't this true? Not only him, I believe everyone else in the team has also noticed Zhou Lingyu's recent uncertainty. I haven't noticed that everyone has been a lot quieter in the past 2 days." Zhou Lingyu gasped in anger, stretched out her hand and pointed in the direction of the door. "Get out. Su-men is very busy." Zhou Lingyu saw him running away so fast as if he was trying to escape. She swiped her phone and saw that the number of searches related to the word Zhang Lingzi had skyrocketed. She was so angry that she couldn't sleep well all night. Asterisk. Gu Jiantong stayed at the Albers family manor. After the dance, Wei and I took Gu Jiantong back to the small villa where she lived. Before getting ready to rest, she called 2 nurses to massage her feet. We were wearing high heels and dancing this night, so it was impossible for our feet not to get sore. As she was being pressed comfortably and falling asleep, Wei and I heard Gu Jiantong ask inadvertently, "Wei and I saw that you and Zhang Lingzi had a very happy chat at the dance. What did you say?" Wei and I opened her eyes and looked at Gu Jiantong, who was half lying on the massage table next to her. "Why are you so curious now? When I asked you to come with me to say hello, you still didn't go. I don't believe you haven't noticed that there's a bit of trouble between me and Zhang Lingzi." Although Gu Jiantong said this with a smile, his tone was somewhat weird. At that time, seeing her friend and Zhang Lingzi chatting happily, she felt really uncomfortable. The people she dislikes should be disliked by her friends as well. If Wei and I had not been coaxed back with good words, she would have really wanted to say directly that I don't like Zhang Lingzi, and you should also hate her with me. Weenie heard the weirdness in Gu Jiantong's tone, but she just smiled. She has no reason to care whether she likes someone or not, even if she is a good friend for many years. "I think that Miss Zhang is pretty good, at least she rejected the boy Kevin Na outright." Looking at the female guests invited this time, "I believe there are not many people who can be as straightforward as her." Gu Jiantong couldn't help curling her lips after hearing this. "That's because you didn't know there was Shen Yunqing. If it weren't for Shen Yunqing, Kevin's current girlfriend would be Zhang Lingzi." But Wei Ni's explanation was not over yet. She did not see Gu Jiantong curl her lips, and continued, "And after a brief chat with her, I found that Miss Zhang has a wide range of interests. She speaks directly but also knows how to be measured. She always gives me a feeling of superiority. She is obviously younger than me. This feeling is really amazing." Gu Jiantong waited patiently for her to finish speaking, and then said coolly, "Then you probably don't know that her academic qualifications are weak, and she has never even gone to college." "Really, I didn't notice it." But I'm also curious, don't you always like good people, so why don't you like her? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 635. The topic came to an end. The masser hired by Albers Manor is naturally very skilled, and the massage on the originally sore feet was very comfortable. But Gu Jiantong felt uncomfortable. There is even a feeling of stealing the chicken but losing the rice. Her plan was to let Winnie stand on her side to help her, but now there is always a feeling that she is handing over powerful foreign aid to her opponent. Back in the guest room, she went to the balcony to calm down. As the eldest daughter of the Albers family, Winnie's residence is the building closest to the main building where the head of the family lives. Looking out from the balcony, the view is second to none. But now she is not in the mood to enjoy the scenery. Looking at the search popularity for Zhang Lingzi displayed on the screen of her phone, it was as if she had been given a shot of blood. She couldn't help but want to ask her assistant to buy some data for herself. It's really dazzling. Isn't it just that I was lucky enough to have a few words with Winnie and Winnie's love-minded younger brother? Why should I pay her so much attention? Why not? A soft voice suddenly sounded from behind. Gu Jiantong suddenly froze as he complained behind his back, and subconsciously turned his head to look over. When he saw the figure sitting quietly on the rocking chair clearly, he was so frightened that he took a few steps back and hit the finely crafted railing with his back. Who are you and how did you get in? Don't worry about how I got in. Do you hate Zhang Lingzi? Gu Jiantong pursed her lips and said nothing. The hands behind her back were already quietly calling for help. This person appeared suddenly, his whole body wrapped in black gauze with only one pair of eyes exposed. He was as weird as he wanted to be and she couldn't help but feel weird. Wu Hua saw Gu Qintung's little move, but just pretended not to see it. Gu Zi, I said, I also know that you hate Zhang Lingzi because Shen Yunqing only has eyes for her. Gu Jiantong was so shaken that she even forgot to send a distress message. You, how do you know? I can help you. What can you help me with? I don't want to see Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing together all the time. I'll help you separate them. Both of these two people carry with them the merits and fortunes that saved all the people in their previous life. Although Shen Yunqing used forbidden magic to reduce his own merits and fortunes a lot, they are still frighteningly rich. Moreover, she is still injured. The two of them are easier to deal with separately, but together, even she has to admit that she is not very sure. But it doesn't matter, she can still take advantage of some people's selfishness. The one in front of me is pretty good. Having a family background and ambition, it would be best if she succeeds. Even if she fails, Zhang Lingzi will be disgusted, so it won't be a big loss for her. Gu Jiantong couldn't help but feel a little excited, but still didn't let down his guard. You have a grudge against them? How can you help me? Zhang Lingzi's current momentum is so strong that even she can't stop it. Even she had to admit now that the only thing that could make her stronger than Zhang Lingzi was her family background. I have my own way, you just need to obey my instructions when necessary. Gu Jiantong frowned subconsciously. The other person could even guess her thoughts, but she didn't know the name of the person in front of her and what he looked like. He expected her to obey orders. What kind of cooperation was this? Wu Hua saw Gu Jiantong at a glance, and the corners of his mouth covered by black veil curled up disdainfully. Zhang Lingzi's strong rise now has blocked the way of many people in their circle. If you don't want to, then I will go find someone else. This is your only chance. Gu Jiantong originally wanted to let her think about it, but he just took the opportunity to find out who this person was. But when she faced those eyes that looked like a smile but not a smile, she had an inexplicable feeling that all her thoughts were exposed in the eyes of the other person. Good. It's a pleasure to work with. As soon as these four words fell, Wu Hua stood up under Gu Qintung's horrified gaze and climbed down the railing without hesitation. When Gu Jiantong covered her mouth tightly to suppress her screams, she looked down at the railing with wide eyes, and there was that black figure. The excitement was so great that Gu Jiantong lay on the bed and tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. It was not until dawn that she finally fell asleep, but in her dream, the figure who jumped over the railing appeared again. 2 circles were created under her eyes, which shocked Winnie, who came to have breakfast with her. "What did you do up all night?" "I had a nightmare. First I couldn't fall asleep, and then I was woken up by a fright." "Isn't this a nightmare?" Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi was woken up by the ringing of her cell phone. When she opened her eyes, she saw Shen Yunqing holding her hand, as seriously as if he was counting the lines on it. She made a few grasping movements, waiting for others to turn their eyes over. "I think nothing is wrong." Shen Yunqing let go of his hand and snorted softly, "It's indeed not as pale as last night. It has regained some rossiness, but it is still different from the other hand." Zhang Lingzi put her 2 hands together and compared them. "Is there any difference? It's better to wear gloves to keep warm today." Zhang Lingzi. She chose to turn around and take the phone. Seeing that it was Mr. Casuo's call, she quickly connected it. "Mr. Castle. I didn't disturb your rest. I heard that the welcome dance held by Kevina yesterday didn't end until almost midnight." Zhang Lingzi took the phone away from her ear and looked at the time. "Very good, it's already 10:30. Already got up. That's fine, that's fine. I'm in the studio now. I'll ask my assistant to pick you up later. We'll just have lunch together and then go to the studio to try on the clothes that will be on the catwalk tomorrow." Ling 11, "Look at this, how are the arrangements?" "Very thoughtful. Then it's settled." Before hanging up the phone, Zhang Ning heard the sound of getting up behind her and looked back. "Mr. Casuo, can I bring an assistant?" "Sure." Shen Yunqing, who also heard the call, said, "After we get out of Mr. Casuo's place, we will go see Wuju." "Okay, by the way, where do they live now?" "It's not far from here, and it's not far from where the people from Changkangmen live." Zhang Lingzi. "Just keep an eye on her, right?" The 2 of them packed up, opened the door and went out, then met several pairs of eyes looking at each other in the living room outside. Tong Yu still hesitates to speak. Zhang Lingzi didn't wait for her to speak. "I'll go to Mr. Casuo's studio with Yun Qing later to have dinner. We have other arrangements in the evening. Sister Tong, just take Zheng Zheng and the others to roam freely today. We'll start tomorrow. I'm busy, I just want to relax today." Tong Yu finally swallowed back the words she wanted to remind tactfully, and nodded to show her understanding. "Then will you and Mr. Shen come back tonight? I'll send you a message if I don't come back." "Well, keep in touch at any time." Just after taking a few sips of water, the phone in the room rang. It was Wang Lu notifying someone to pick up the call. Really on time. Zhang Lingzi drank the remaining water in one gulp, took Shen Yunqing with one hand and waved to Tong Yu and the others, "Let's go. The door is closed." Xiao Xiao said belatedly, "Sister 11 put on a pair of gloves this time based on the clothes I matched for her. They look pretty good." A car with a somewhat out-of-the-way style was parked at the side entrance of Chongxiao Tower. Seeing the 2 figures coming out of the guard, the young man waiting by the car hurriedly greeted them, "Hello, Miss Zhang, I am Mr. Casso's assistant." Zhang Lingzi looked at him a few times. The young man was a little nervous. He blinked and turned around to open the car door. "Please get in the car. I've seen you." Zhang Lingzi's voice sounded from behind him. "At the welcome dance last night, you were arm in arm with the second son of the Albers family." The young man froze. "Miss Zhang has good eyesight." "Okay, I admit, I temporarily took the job of Grandpa's assistant, mainly because I wanted to make friends with Miss Zhang." After saying that, he couldn't help but look at Zhang Lingzi's side. "But who is this gentleman?" He heard from his grandfather that Miss Zhang would also bring an assistant with her, but this person really didn't look like an assistant no matter how he looked at it. Assistant and boyfriend, do you have any questions? Without just wearing multiple hats, who could tell him that he could still do this? It's really a great experience. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 636. Before Zhang Lingzi could call Mr. Kazuo for confirmation, the other party's call came in first. I didn't know until the assistant came back that brat had stolen his job. Ling 11, you're welcome, just do whatever you want. Turning on the loudspeaker, Carl heard what his grandfather said. Still not a biological grandfather? The three of them got into the four-seater supercar that didn't look very stable at first glance. After the vehicle started, Carl stepped on the accelerator and subconsciously started to drive. Suddenly, he felt a chill on his back. The accelerator under his feet subconsciously relaxed. The supercar with excellent performance was suddenly stopped by a taxi on the spacious road. Beyond the past. However, even so, he did not dare to speed up. It's enough to experience that feeling of coldness on your back and the back of your head once. Since he couldn't race, he couldn't help but raise his eyes and quietly glanced at the back seat through the rearview mirror in the car. Yesterday, he witnessed with his own eyes that his good friend who had always been successful failed in front of this Miss Zhang. It was impossible to say that he was not curious at all. So after learning that his grandfather had ordered his assistant to pick up this girl early in the morning, he took action decisively and snatched the job. There is no other purpose, just to get up close and personal with this girl who even his best buddies look down on. What is so special about her? Who would have known that they would be hit hard as soon as they met? She actually already has a boyfriend. It doesn't look fake either. Carl couldn't control his gaze and paused again and again on the two faces in the rearview mirror. Even though he prefers his good friend in his heart, he has to admit that such two outstanding faces full of wazoo charm are really matched together and can be called a visual feast. It is indeed a much better match than the sweet face of my good friend. Drive well. A sudden cool reminder brought Carl back to his senses. After reacting, his face felt a little hot. Although he didn't want to admit it, he seemed to be really stunned just now. When the car stopped in front of a white building with a strong sense of design, Carl turned off the engine and got out of the car. He opened the back seat door with a sigh of relief, and with a face that was still a little hot, he said politely, "Miss Zhang, and Mr. Assistant, please get out of the car, the studio is here." Zhang Lingzi had already seen Mr. Kazuo, who came out to greet him in person. "Long time no see, Lingzi. Did that brat Carl not race on the road?" "No. Grandpa, how dare I be your distinguished guest?" Zhang Lingzi's and Carl's voices sounded almost at the same time, but Carl was slapped aside by his own grandfather. "Is this the assistant you were talking about?" When Kazuo saw Zhang Lingzi, he noticed the young man following her. It was really hard not to notice him. Having worked in the fashion industry for a lifetime, it can be said that his eyes have been trained to be as standard as a ruler. The superiority of head and body can be seen at a glance. Not to mention that he has such a face, and his temperament is much better than that of his own brat. Such an outstanding young man is really just an assistant? Mr. Kazuo said, "I don't believe it." Zhang Lingzi has no intention of insisting on hiding it. Mr. Kazuo is not an outsider to her. Hearing this, he smiled and grabbed Shen Yunqing's wrist, who was right next to him. Seeing the undisguised intimate movements between the two, no need to say anything. Seeing Kazuo's expression of realization, this is much more reasonable. "What do you call it?" "Shen Yunqing." "Good names, your names all have charm. Please come in, I have specially invited two chefs from Huazhu today, and they are preparing lunch." I will show you around my studio first. It's an honor. Carl was alone at the end. Looking at the two people's hands that had not let go since they held each other openly in front of Grandpa, he hesitated for a moment and took out his mobile phone and followed him. Kevin soon received a message from his good friend, just one sentence. Carl, brother, you didn't lose unfairly. Kevin. It has no beginning or end, and is incomprehensible. He replied with a question mark. Carl, to be honest, I don't dare to say it now, but you will know later, so be patient. Kevin, is there anything else you dare not say? Carl, I dare to drive the supercar for 60 miles, so why not? Kevin. Now it's certain, Carl, this kid is crazy. Mr. Casso's studio has 6 floors, 2 underground and 4 above ground. The 2 underground floors are mainly used for collection, while the 4 above ground floors are where his family and studio employees work. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing took the elevator to -2 under his guidance, and first visited the old man's collection room. I also have a separate collection room here, which collects your Chinese costumes. The earliest one can be traced back 500 years ago. Speaking of his collection, the old man was very familiar with his treasures. It is an ancient women's wedding dress, extremely gorgeous, but it's broken in many places. I tried to make an exact copy of it, but in the end it was limited by some special materials and embroidery on the clothes. You see, this is the one, and there are others. It's my collection, isn't it beautiful? Zhang Lingzi first looked at the ancient women's wedding dress protected in a glass cover, and then looked at other clothes collected according to age and style, and nodded, it is indeed beautiful. The clothing of each era has its own characteristics. She likes the clothing style of the Yuan Zhao period because the clothing characteristics of that time all have her preferences. It is undeniable that clothing from other eras also have their own beauty. Just as I was thinking of this, the voice of the old man beside me sounded, actually, what I like most are the costumes from the Yuan Zhao period 1,000 years ago in your history. Maybe the empress was in power at that time. The costumes during that period were grand and gorgeous, and the decorations were decorated in a prosperous age. It is even more beautiful. Unfortunately, the preservation period of the clothes is still too short, and now we can only get a glimpse of it from your history books and the paintings that have been handed down. Zhang Lingzi suddenly felt that Mr. Casuo was really discerning. She nodded without changing her expression. I also like the costumes of the Yuan Zhao period. Empress Yuan Zhao's aesthetics is indeed very good. Haha, how do you say this Chinese proverb? Heroes think alike. Shen Yunqing couldn't help but cough slightly. I was in such a rush last time that I didn't have time to tell you. The dragon robe I designed this time was based on many patterns and features from the Yuan Zhao period. Since you like it too, you will definitely like this dress too. Then I'm looking forward to it even more. Let's go have a meal first. After lunch, we'll go try on clothes. Carl had a meal shamelessly. After the meal, he was ready to leave, but when he heard that what Zhang Lingzi wanted to try on was actually the dragon robe that Grandpa treasured so much, he stopped where he was. The clothes were on the second floor. Zhang Lingzi and Mr. Casuo went up together, leaving Shen Yunqing and Carl waiting on the first floor. The wait lasted for nearly a quarter of an hour. Just when Carl was impatiently preparing to play a game, he finally heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Shen Yunqing, who was guarding the stairs, immediately looked up, and Carl quickly looked up as well. As soon as he stood up, he saw a red figure with a golden dragon embroidered on it. When the pair of majestic red phoenix eyes lowered their eyes and looked over, Carl felt his knees weaken. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 637. The simple Western-style staircase has the effect of being stepped out of a bright hall. Hair is just held up by a gold hairpin, and the face is bare, but it does not affect the effect of the clothes on the upper body at all. It was in this silence that Zhang Lingzi walked up to Shen Yunqing and called out with a smile, "Shen Cheng." Shen Yunqing was really stunned for several seconds this time before he raised his hand and grasped the hand that was stretched out towards him under Fan Li's wide sleeve. Carl held one hand on the tall green plant beside him, with his mouth still slightly open. It wasn't until he saw the two people holding hands together in front of him that he barely woke up from the powerful shock he had just experienced. This dragon robe was his grandfather's most treasured piece. As his grandfather's favorite grandson, he had naturally admired it before. More than once. At that time, I also thought about which international supermodel in the current fashion circle could hold on to such a piece of clothing that cost my grandfather the most effort. He thought about everyone and felt that they were all quite uncomfortable. It's not that I'm afraid that I won't be able to hold it up, but that I can't suppress my intuition. He was wondering if his grandpa would invite the senior who had retired from the supermodel industry to come out, but as the grand ceremony was approaching, he didn't see his grandpa having any intention of contacting that person. Until now. Carl suddenly understood. It turns out that grandpa has already found the most suitable person for him. Zhang Lingzi looked back at Mr. Casuo who was coming down the stairs. Okay, that's great. I can already imagine the grand scene at the closing show tomorrow. Closing. Yes, it's closed. Kasuo patted his grandson on the shoulder, then looked at Zhang Lingzi, who was wearing a dragon robe, with a sigh in his tone. This dragon robe has been a collection of my hard work for several years, and I am willing to call it's the pinnacle of my life, and I have a feeling I'll never create a more perfect piece of clothing, let alone find the perfect showpiece for it. I am content now, and it's time to be content. Speaking of this, Kasuo had a relaxed smile on his face. Ling 11, I want to thank you. From now on, I will have no regrets. Carl looked at his grandfather's side face, and then at Zhang Lingzi who was standing in front of his grandfather. He took a deep breath, pursed his lips, and silently said thank you in his heart. The overly excited mood passed, and Mr. Casuo soon became a little out of energy. Zhang Lingzi changed her clothes back and took the initiative to say goodbye. I really need a good rest today to prepare for tomorrow's closing show. Then I won't keep you any longer. We'll see you tomorrow. Carl, please send Ling 11 and Mr. Shen away. Carl nodded obediently, yes, Grandpa. Even though Zhang Lingzi had changed back to her original clothes and restrained her previously relaxed aura, the shock caused before was too profound, so Carl behaved well as he drove the two of them away. I will pick up Miss Zhang and Mr. Shen tomorrow. What about that? Can you add your contact information? I will send you a message when we are almost there. Shen Yunqing silently handed over his mobile phone. Carl. Fine. After adding the contact information, he drove the car a short distance and parked on the side of the road. He took out his mobile phone and clicked on Kevin Na's profile picture. Some words cannot be spoken quickly or quickly. Kevin looked at the message he had just received on the screen of his mobile phone. Carl, now I really feel that you are really not worthy of that girl. Kevin. Did this guy take the wrong medicine today? If I'm not worthy, how can you be worthy of it? It's just that as soon as this paragraph was edited and before it could be sent out, the second message came. Carl, even if you are really lucky enough to fall in Miss Jiang's eyes, you will just be destined to be a man's favorite. Not even half as dignified as Mr. Shen. Kevin deleted all the newly edited text, and then decisively blacklisted the name Carl. Let's wait until the seizure ends before pulling the person out. Carl's third message failed to be sent successfully. Looking at the prompt on the screen that the other party has put you in the blacklist, he sighed, I can't even bear this. Asterisk. Getting out of the taxi, Zhang Lingzi looked at the beautiful holiday villa in front of her. It's a pretty good stay. As soon as he entered the door, a person came out of the living room next to him. Sister 11, sir. Zhang Lingzi hugged Chang Ning and glanced at the empty living room, Yunyi isn't there. At his mother's. Wuju heard the noise and came down from upstairs holding the beads in one hand. When his eyes fell on Zhang Lingzi, he raised his eyebrows. Chang Ning just asked, Sister 11, why are you still wearing gloves? Keep warm. Zhang Lingzi took off her gloves and looked at Wuju, who had already walked up to her. Did you see it? I feel Wuhua's aura, Wuju said, looking at the palm that Zhang Lingzi handed over. The palm has now returned to ruddy color, but if you look closely, the blood vessels hidden under the skin still have a somewhat unhealthy black color. Purple, you are reckless. The person in front of him would be able to withstand Wuhua's increasingly heavy death aura if he didn't possess extraordinary merit and luck. If it were an ordinary person, even if he accidentally touched a little finger, he would be in the intensive care unit by now. Zhang Lingzi narrowed her eyes slightly. She took the initiative to find me. Because she is impatient, Wu just said, passing the prayer beads in his hands over to her, and explained, it will help her recover faster. As soon as Zhang Lingzi took it, she felt the warmth conveyed from the beads. What on earth is there on her? Death. Last time in the underground tomb in the desert, although I couldn't kill her, I could vaguely guess why she left Chang Kangman and risked her appearance. There is probably something wrong with the technique she practiced, coupled with the serious injury that has not healed. The death energy cannot be controlled to leak out. Zhang Lingzi still clearly remembers the feeling when she touched Wuhua's arm. Her body was so cold that I felt like I had touched an ice cube. Chang Ning couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Sister 11, you are so brave, you really dare to touch anything. Zhang Lingzi felt the two disapproving looks from the side, stretched out her hand to press down her thumb, and coughed lightly. I'm impulsive. Wuju glanced at Shen Yunqing, who was holding his breath again. Since Wuhua took the initiative to expose herself in front of us, it means that she has begun to lose her composure, but her primary target has also been secretly fighting with me, and it has fallen on you too. Body. Zhang Lingzi twirled her prayer beads one after another. Wuhua is your junior sister, and you know her well. Then what methods do you think she will use to deal with me and Yunqing? My guess is, divide and transform, and attack the heart first. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing frowned at the same time. Are you trying to separate them? Want to create conflicts between them? Is this person too confident? Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 638. When leaving, Zhang Lingzi had a string of Buddhist beads on her wrist. In Wuju's words, Buddhist beads are protected by the Buddha's energy and are the nemesis of evil spirits and death. The effect of wearing them is better than not wearing them. So this string of prayer beads temporarily changed its owner. However, unless Zhang Lingzi is attending some occasion, she needs jewelry to match her makeup and dress. She rarely wears jewelry on her body, even earrings, and it is even harder to see other jewelry on her body. As soon as he returned, he was noticed by Tongyu and the others who stayed behind. Sister 11, you and Mr. Shen went out and bought a bunch of Buddhist beads like this. After they were left alone, they guessed that the two of them would go on a date or something. This was the main reason why they didn't plan to bring these light bulbs with them. But who would buy a string of Buddhist beads for their girlfriend when they go out on a date? When she saw the Buddhist beads, she could only think of 4 words, pure heart and few desires. I didn't buy it, it was a gift from a friend. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the Buddhist beads on her wrist, which were indeed a bit conspicuous. She thought for a while and found an explanation. He said that I have been guilty of evil recently and wearing the beads can ward off evil. Oh. A few people were suddenly stunned and a little nervous. Then we have to be careful and don't accidentally get in the way of others. It's a good thing that one's own artists are becoming more and more popular nowadays, but if they are not envied by others, they are mediocre. There are countless people in this circle who want to find faults in their own artists' faults so that they can blame them themselves. Now is not the time to be complacent. Zhang Lingzi saw that they all looked more alert, and their goal was achieved. She and Shen Yunqing thought they could deal with Wu Hua's secret plans, but the people around them couldn't be wary at all. After all, based on unconscious inference, Wu Hua is now a bit anxious and ready to use any means to do some harm, and it is not impossible to attack ordinary people. Especially the people around her, it's always right to be wary of something. There are more than 100 beads in total, which can be wrapped around 4 times on the wrist. Before going to bed, Zhang Lingzi wrapped 2 strings around Shen Yunqing's wrist. In case she has not forgotten that this man held her hand and warmed it all night last night. After being in contact for so long, she still felt safer doing this. It doesn't matter if I'm just sleeping anyway. On the other hand, when Zhang Lingzi woke up to a knock on the door early the next morning, she forgot what she had done before going to bed last night. After sitting up, I subconsciously raised my hand to brush my hair that was a little messy from sleeping, but my other hand happened to pull it down in the opposite direction. The consequence of both of them being quite strong was that neither of them could do anything to the other for a moment. Their arms all hit the bedside, and the prayer beads wrapped around their wrists also hit the brass edge of the bedside, making a loud and crisp sound. Ring. The 2 people who were still a little sleepy suddenly woke up. The originally light and slow knocking on the door also paused. Lu Zhenzhen walked back with a blushing face and met Tong Yu, who had just finished washing and came out of the room. Is the person awake? Lu Zhenzhen opened his mouth and said hesitantly, maybe he's awake. What do you mean, you should be awake? Mr. Casso's people will come to pick you up in a while. You must not be late today. As he said that, he was about to go over and knock on the door again. Lu Zhenzhen quickly pulled her back and said, Sister Tong, there was something moving in Sister Zixi's room. I heard the sound of the head of the bed being hit. Tong Yu. Only then did she clearly see the meaningful eyes on Lu Zhenzhen's red face, and coughed lightly, then let's order breakfast to be served first. Zhang Lingzi came out of the room and met Tong Yu's hesitant expression again. Sister Tong, is there anything you want to tell me? Just as Tong Yu was about to speak, she saw Mr. Shen coming out behind her, and the words that came to her lips became, eat more. Eat more and replenish your physical strength first. After all, I have a lot of work to do in the next day. By the way, Zhenzhen, please inform Miss Wang and send someone over to clean the room today. After Tong Yu gave her instructions, she turned around and couldn't help but glance at Zhang Lingzi, who was still eating. Alas, she worries too much about her own artists. Zhang Lingzi. I always think this look is a bit weird. After breakfast, Shen Yunqing also received a message from Carl on his mobile phone. People will be here soon. They don't have the habit of keeping each other waiting, so they just go downstairs after packing. It was just a coincidence that I happened to meet Gu Jiantong in the elevator, surrounded by a group of bodyguards and assistants. Today is the official start of the International Fashion Festival, and all the invited guests have come out. The 2 looked at each other in the elevator, and Zhang Lingzi was the first to look away. Although everyone is out on this day, the itinerary is still a little different. She and Gu Jiantong are not on the same path, and they don't even have to maintain their superficial politeness. After Zhang Lingzi looked away, Gu Jiantong moved his eyes to Shen Yunqing, who put on the mask again. The more polite this man was to her, the more she wanted to see her reflection in this man's eyes. It doesn't matter even if you become obsessed. Thinking of what the woman in the black dress said the night before yesterday, I couldn't help but pinch my palms with my fingers under my sleeves. Tell yourself silently, don't rush. Coming out of the elevator, Gu Jiantong watched Zhang Lingzi take Shen Yunqing into a private supercar with a bit of a flair. The agent and assistant got into the car arranged by Zhongxiao Tower. She waved the assistant over, check Zhang Lingzi, whose car did you get on? The woman in the black dress said that she would help her, but she would not put all her hopes on the other person. Carl parked the car honestly in front of his grandfather's studio. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing have already been here once, and they are already familiar with it this time. On the other hand, Tong Yu and others in the car behind were here for the first time. Looking at the building in front of them that they had only seen on the internet, they could not restrain their nervousness and excitement. Not only can they see the real thing with their own eyes, but they can also go in and visit it. Especially when I saw Mr. Casso actually coming to the lobby on the first floor to greet me, I suddenly felt proud. The dress has been modified and prepared. Casso directly led Zhang Lingzi and others into a spacious and bright room. This room is exclusively for you today. That brat Carl is on standby outside at any time. Just prepare yourself, and I'm leaving. Everyone is very busy today, but Mr. Casso is definitely the busiest. The last big show before retirement, he decided to arrange and direct it himself. Now that the arrangement has been completed, the next command is also very important. Seeing Mr. Casso leave in the car, everyone suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Although this old man seems very friendly and easygoing in front of his own artist, after all, he is a supergiant in the fashion industry, and they cannot be nervous unless the other person is friendly. Quick, I want to see the dress that Mr. Casso lent us. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 639. The red carpet of this grand ceremony was much grander than the welcome ball held by Albers as the host 2 days ago. It is not an exaggeration to say that it attracted worldwide attention. Accordingly, this dress for the red carpet is more difficult to borrow than last time. After all, everyone wants to stun the world on the red carpet. But before Tong Yu and Xiao Xiao had a headache about this matter, Zhang Lingzi solved the most troublesome thing. She has already volunteered to help the old man walk the red carpet, so it wouldn't be too much to lend him a dress. Anyway, she just mentioned it, and the other party nodded in agreement. For Mr. Casso, this is a simple matter. The dust-proof curtain was opened by Lu Zhengzheng with quick hands, and what appeared in front of everyone was a heavy-duty dress in green lotus color decorated with patterns made of diamonds. This dress. Xiao Xiao is familiar with the high-end brands of all major brands. After seeing the full picture of the dress, he couldn't help but say, it seems to be a collection from last year. Although collectible models are very precious, but wearing last year's models now, does she think they are a bit outdated? Zhang Lingzi nodded. Mr. Casso also told me when I chose this piece, but I like it. Okay, let's start putting on makeup. No matter whether the dress was from last year or the year before, nothing could compare to her liking. Xiao Xiao said nothing more, opened the makeup box she brought with her, and began to think about the makeup, accessories, and hairstyle that would best match the dress. Carl was already prepared to wait for 2 or 3 hours no matter what. After all, it was not like he had never seen how much ink stains women had on their makeup and clothes. If it had been before, he would have left this job to the people in the studio and gone out to enjoy himself. But this time, he really didn't dare to just leave. Looking at the news in the chat group about why it was nowhere to be seen at such an old age, he simply pointed his finger. Out of sight, out of mind. Just as he was about to click on a game and play a few games, the door to the room behind him suddenly opened, and voices poured out. He subconsciously looked back. Mr. Carl. Lu Zhengzheng stretched out her hand and waved it in front of his eyes. Carl, who was about to come back to his senses, quickly coughed to cover up. Are you about to set off? Well, everything is ready and ready to go. Then, let's go. Speaking, he took out his car keys and walked outside. Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao looked at his back, which looked like he had the same hands and feet, and looked at each other and couldn't help but chuckle. Their sister Xixi's charm is so great that even Mr. Cassio's grandson is stunned. They can all imagine what a lively scene it will be when they arrive at the scene. A supercar was easily overtaken by the car next to it on the way to the grand ceremony. Kevin couldn't help but turn his head and glance at the rearview mirror. The car he passed seemed familiar to him. The co-pilot's girlfriend noticed that the car was slowing down and asked, "What's wrong?" "It's okay," he said. It was okay. After thinking about it, he took the phone over, clicked on Carl's profile picture and sent a message, "What are you doing?" He waited for almost a minute before he received a reply. "Driving. On the way to the venue of an international fashion festival?" "Yes." Kevin immediately took a photo in the rearview mirror. "Are you the one who uses supercars as turtle drivers? I remember you had a car with this color." Carl, who clicked on the picture. "No. Even he won't admit it?" The girlfriend looked at Kevin and suddenly laughed out loud. "Did something funny happen?" "Haha, that kid Carl doesn't know who is in the car. He turned a good supercar into a classic car from 100 years ago, and he still refuses to admit it." "No, I have to see what he is carrying." "Who?" "No matter how slow the speed is, there is still time to arrive. The event site has a concise name, International Fashion Plaza. The location is near the Fashion Palace. 2 rows of tall white pillars, nearly 10 meters apart, spread for more than 100 meters, with a clean, brand new big red carpet spread in the middle. There are 2 security guards next to each pillar, with eyes and ears in all directions, blocking all crises from the red carpet. Major media outlets were densely waiting on both sides of the pillar, and professional photography equipment had already been set up. Every time a car stops in front of the red carpet, the cameras waiting nearby will always move over as soon as possible, and the reaction speed is extremely fast. The host of the entertainment channel holding a microphone rushed over with the camera crew. He ran very fast and his voice was still smooth and clear. "Let's see which celebrity is arriving this time." The car door was about to be opened by the staff guarding outside. Zhang Lingzi took Shen Yunqing's hand and transferred the Buddhist beads on his wrist to his hand. "Wait for me in the inner court and keep an eye on Tongyu and the others." Carl stared straight ahead. He should not be in the car now, but under the car. Soon, the car door opened. There was a please from outside. Zhang Lingzi let go of Shen Yunqing's hand naturally and turned around to get out of the car. The flashlights suddenly connected together. After waving politely at the densely packed cameras, Zhang Lingzi stepped onto the red carpet and strode forward. The host silently took back the microphone he was about to hand over. "It's Zhang Lingzi." Zhang Lingzi's popularity has been rising rapidly recently. I heard that she has just entered the fashion industry, and she can be said to be a formidable young lady. Official live broadcast room of the International Fashion Festival. Haha, the host lady was planning to go up for an interview, but Zhang Lingzi walked over in a hurry. At least we were allowed to take a high-definition photo when we got off the bus. Other celebrities can't wait to take 1 step or 2 steps back on the red carpet. Why is Zhang Lingzi walking so fast? Maybe it's because it's cold. It's still morning in the international fashion town. I want to say that her dress looks much thicker than those of the previous girlfriends. I found that Zhang Lingzi is really suitable for this kind of heavy-duty dress with an elegant style. But, if I read it correctly, the piece she is wearing seems to be last year's high-definition model. Last year? Haven't borrowed this year's new model? It shouldn't be, she's been very popular recently. But in the fashion industry, Zhang Lingzi can only be considered a newcomer. It's normal if the brand doesn't lend to you. It doesn't matter whether what she wears is from this year or last year, as long as it looks good. Yeah, regardless of whether this dress is haute couture or not, I think this dress of hers is much prettier than those colorful and revealing dresses in front of me. I won't accept any objection. Walking too fast has a consequence. She was not the only one walking on the 100-meter-long red carpet. There was a gorgeous star or supermodel standing at intervals in front of her. After inadvertently crossing one, Zhang Lingzi received a reminder from the staff responsible for managing the order of the red carpet. "Miss Zhang, please walk slower, you are walking too fast." In the live broadcast room. Did anyone hear what the staff member said when he stopped Zhang Lingzi? It seems to be saying that she is walking too fast, please walk slower. Ha ha ha, I guess this is the first time the staff has reminded the guests like this. In the past, they always told guests to go faster and avoid causing traffic jams. Zhang Lingzi also overtook another car, and I watched her pass a guest who was posing for a photo. Hot search booking, #overtaking #. In the live broadcast room, the screen was flooded with ha 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 in the blink of an eye. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 640. Zhou Lingyu lowered her head and tugged on the skirt of her dress, raised her head with a smile, and saw that all the cameras that were facing her had moved to the other side. He turned his head and looked over in shock. When he saw the person walking towards him clearly, he couldn't help but smile and grind his teeth. It's Zhang Lingzi again. Pinched her fingers, she simply felt relieved and walked directly towards Zhang Lingzi. Raise your hand, smile, and say hello, hi, we meet again. Do you want to take a photo together? Zhang Lingzi noticed it when she walked towards him, but he didn't expect that she could take the initiative to say hello and look at her without concealing it. Eye expression indicates, are you okay? When did their relationship become good enough to be photographed together? Zhou Lingyu tried her best to put a smile on her face, leaned forward slightly, leaned into Zhang Lingzi's ear and said in an extremely quiet voice, "This is on the red carpet of an international fashion festival. We are all from China. In the eyes of these people outside, we are one, so you won't give me this little face, right?" Hearing her implicit threat, Zhang Lingzi took a step back without hesitation, then strode across and continued to move forward, replying with actual actions, "No. I have never received any threats in my previous life and this life. This time is naturally no exception." Zhou Lingyu could hardly maintain her smile now. Just then, a staff member came over to urge her. She stayed on the red carpet for too long. Those who noticed this shot in the live broadcast room were also talking about it. Did Zhang Lingzi not agree to take a photo with Zhou Lingyu? This is a bit rude. Zhou Lingyu is her senior after all, so she took the initiative to invite her. This time, I am indeed a bit unsophisticated. Even if we don't get along in private, we have to pretend on occasions like this. Have you forgotten that Zhang Lingzi has been famous for being coquettish since her debut? She has not always been like this in terms of human relations and sophistication. Although she has not been so squeamish in the past 6 months or so, but when you see her appearing in public, when has she ever wronged herself? If you think about it, it's true. I just wanted to say that I like this kind of character. Whether it's polite or not, I just care about my own comfort. Zhou Lingyu invites a group photo. The invited party also has the right to refuse. If you don't want to take a group photo, why do you have to take it yourself? It's such a joke. I don't want to understand the ways of the world, I just want to be a happy and willful little girl. +1, although the reality is that I can't do it myself, but now I see that Zhang Lingzi can do it, it feels quite cool to take on the role. Okay, the next hot search is scheduled, ##. Infield. Tong Yu and others have arrived in advance and sat down where the guests and their entourage were. A few people gathered on the curved sofa and were busy checking their mobile phones to watch the live broadcast. When she saw Zhang Lingzi refusing to take photos with Zhou Lingyu and walking away, she couldn't help but look at each other. What is Zhou Lingyu thinking about? He actually asked Sister Zixi to take a photo with him. I definitely wanted to catch up with Sister Zixi, but luckily Sister Zixi didn't let her succeed. Sister 11 did a great job. Why should I give her face? It's not a good relationship. Tong Yu listened to them all talking about compliments and vindictiveness. Then she looked at the hot search list displayed on her mobile phone and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Other celebrities are hotly searched, and the entries are, so-and-so is so beautiful, so-and-so wears whose haute couture, what is so-and-so's condition, etc. It's the artist's turn to be trending. Zhang Lingzi overtaking on a corner hashtag. Zhang Lingzi is ignorant of the world and the world hashtag. Hashtag, please walk slower. Hashtag. The main focus is a sudden change in painting style. Tong Yu, feeling tired? In addition to being the driver for Zhang Lingzi and her assistant today, Carl was also one of the invited guests. As a result, as soon as he sat down at the assigned seat, he received a half-smiling look from Kevin, who was sitting next door. "Why do you look at me like that?" Kevin said in a joking tone. "How come our dignified young master Carl has become someone else's driver?" Carlton's face suddenly changed. "Did you see it?" Kevin pointed to his two eyes. "Both eyes have seen it. Not to mention, you are a very professional driver. You have turned a good supercar into a turtle." Carl grinned at his back teeth and caught a glimpse of a figure sitting in the front row from the corner of his eye. He suddenly grinned and said, "If you want to be Miss Jiang's driver, I'm afraid you haven't had the chance yet." Kevin paused in his smile. "Who cares? Look at the man sitting over there." Kevin looked in the direction of his finger and saw the other person taking off his mask. He narrowed his eyes and said, "That's the assistant who is following Miss Jiang? How can he sit so far forward?" Carl grinned and raised his eyebrows proudly. "Guess." "I won't tell you. Good brothers are meant to laugh at each other, fall in love and kill each other." Gu Jiantong sat with Epswinny. After she couldn't help but look to the right several times, Wei Ni put down her phone and turned her head to look at her friend. "What are you looking at?" "No, it's nothing." Weenie also looked in front of her. Their location to watch the show is already considered excellent, but there is also a row of specially invited VIP seats in front of them. This is Mr. Casso's show, so the special guest seats in front can only be occupied by those personally invited by Mr. Casso. At this moment, a person was already sitting in front of her. The other person's face was turned away from her and she couldn't see him, but regardless of his sitting posture or dress sense, he was the best among the men she had ever seen. Wait. She suddenly thought of a possibility. "Jiantong, it's not like you fell in love at first sight, right?" Gu Qintong's ears suddenly turned red. Seeing her reaction, Wei Ni couldn't help but widen her eyes in surprise, raised her hand to cover her mouth. "Am I right? Do you know who this is?" Gu Jiantong was about to nod. She was also surprised at this moment. Shen Yunqing actually sat in the special guest seat, which was beyond her expectation. Is it a fate given by God? Just when I caught a glimpse of the figure walking from the entrance, my head that was already so excited suddenly felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured on it. Immediately afterwards, she watched Zhang Lingzi walking towards the side, getting closer and closer. Finally, he stopped in front of the seat next to Shen Yunqing. Weenie noticed Zhang Lingzi's figure when she appeared in the infield. It was no later than what Gu Jiantong saw. In her opinion, some people are born with the energy to attract everyone's attention. This Miss Zhang is one of them. Seeing the other person getting closer and closer, she was ready to say hello. She saw the man who was sitting quietly in front of her suddenly lean down and help Miss Zhang adjust the hem of her skirt skillfully. Suddenly it dawned on me that the two people knew each other. Zhang Lingzi sat down, and using the cover of her heavy skirt, Shen Yunqing took her hand. The next second, a string of beads with body temperature was transferred to her hand. "I'll pick it up later when I go backstage." Weenie, who happened to be sitting in the back and saw the little action between the two of them. She subconsciously turned to look at Gu Jiantong, and saw that her friend's face still had a ferocious expression that could not be concealed for a while, and she quickly looked away. closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The amount of information gained in just 2 minutes was so huge that she felt like her brain was about to burst.